And I believe I am joined with Zack Winters, Indy pro wrestler, joining me right now. Hello, Zack, and welcome to the show.
Hey, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing real good, sir, and thank you for being on the show this evening.
Anytime, anytime, really.
All right, let's go ahead and begin. How did your wrestling career got started?
Uh, well, I started about 5 years ago. I started about right out of high school and found a wrestling school about 4 or 5 hours away from where I live, and uh, drove every weekend. Luckily, I was working steadily, so I could support my wrestling habit. And then from that company, I for about 6 or 7 months, had a match before the company closed down, and then I've been floating around ever since. Floating around Oregon, California, Washington, Utah.
So, do you remember the first wrestling match that you had, and if so, who was your opponent, and what company did you work for at the time?
It was called BAW, and honestly, right now I couldn't recall. Sorry, I couldn't recall who my first match was. It was a fatal four-way. I remember that much.
And heading into that match, did you got nervous? Was the butterflies kicking in? I mean, and how did you feel about
Uh,
your performance overall?
well, I've always been told everybody's first time. So, but yeah, butterflies. You know, you've been wanting this moment ever since you were a kid, and I remember throwing up before the match, before my music hit. But butterfly, well, I still get butterflies 5 years later, so that's something that never really goes away, you know?
How would you describe your wrestling style? You consider yourself technically savvy, high flying, submission specialist. What? How would you describe your wrestling style?
Honestly, I have a weird mix of being technically sound. I can get out in there and do some mat work thanks to 4 years amateur wrestling. And then, but I could uh, brawl a lot.
Who do you consider as influences in your wrestling career?
Well, growing up, I was always a big Undertaker fan, so I always take a lot from him. Uh, Influences coming up in the business, I'd have to say my trainer, Dr. Cleaver, um, Jason Sullivan. Um, God, there's been a few. I just can't remember them right now.
Okay, so do you have any upcoming wrestling shows that you would like to promote?
Um, every Sunday, for those of you who are in Oregon, every Sunday, BCW Wrestling is at the Eagles Lodge in North Portland. Um, SCW up in Washington at the Squamish Tribal Center. And let's see. Oh yeah, there's a new company coming up, IWC. It's going to be in Pioneer. Their first show, first internet taping, I believe, is going to be. I believe it's going to be in Pioneer Square in downtown Portland, Oregon.
All right,
That
so if you're in the Oregon area, go check this man out, Zack Winters. He's my guest at this time right here on Triple Threat Wrestling Radio.
me, me and my tag partner, Big Vicious, tearing up the Oregon scene right now, the whole Northwest scene.
Speaking of which, why don't you go ahead and talk about the tag team and you and him? How did that tag team came about?
Well, He's have you ever have you caught up on any of our stuff recently?
I definitely have checked out your stuff through Sign Guy. Yes, I have.
Yeah, sign guy. He's a prick. He told me to say that, by the way. So
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
I just needed to get the sign guy shout out, and he told me to call him a prick. So
Oh.
and he is, but Big Vicious is not really the most mentally stable person in the wrestling scene. And initially we're just thrown together, but well, his thing is he talks to a sock monkey. So I figure I bring out another sock monkey and kind of make amends, and after that it's just been one party after another.
Very interesting. Very interesting. So,
Oh, you don't even know how it.
so, what do you consider as the highlight of your wrestling career thus far? It could be a rivalry that you had, a match that stood out to you, a championship you may have won, or a storyline, an angle that you like. What do you like? What do you consider as the highlight of your wrestling career?
Oh, there's been a few. Right now, I'd say the highlight is being number 2 in the Smart Mark Radio Tag of the Year. I mean, that one's personal pride I get, because we went from 0 to number 1 in 4 days, but now we're back down to number 2 because I guess the number 1 team saw us as a threat and decided to get off their asses and start asking for votes. I'd have to say my personal favorite match is a tie between this match I had down here in DOA with Loverboy Nate Andrews, and then probably anytime in me and my tag team and the Hounds of Hell getting the thing, it's usually gold. Not tooting my own horn or anything.
So, as far as, wrestlers out there, whether they're in the indies or whether they're in the pros, is there anyone out there that you haven't had a chance to be in the ring with that you would like to say, let's just say, have a wrestling match with someday?
See, as far as Oregon wrestlers, I'd say Jason Sullivan is someone I've been wanting to match with. As far as Indies, well, Indies is a toss-up because I've been watching the NWA champion Kahagas recently, and he's really, I never knew who he was before I saw him. And that's one guy who I'd really love to get in the ring with. Another one, just for my own personal mark reason, is Colt Cabana.
Colt Cabana, definitely a household name. Obviously, he's known for teaming up with CM Punk. Now he's got his own podcast going on, and he's doing a lot of big things for himself. Definitely a fan of it. I'm definitely a fan of his work. So, if you don't mind, I want to get your take on this whole situation between Glenn Beck and what he had to say about Jack Swagger's character and calling WWE stupid wrestling people, and when WWE trying to reach out to him, he declined. What's your thoughts on that whole situation?
You want to know something funny? I actually used to work at a radio show, an AM radio show, and I used to produce Glenn Beck's show.
Mm.
It was a political radio station, and I used to produce it, which means he'd send us the whole, let's say, 4 hours, and I'd have to cut it up to where the commercials could fit in. But that guy is just a prima donna. He I've talked to him a grand total of 3 times in my life personally, and I have nothing nice to say about him. He's a prima donna. He has to have, if he feels the limelight's not on him, he has to get it on him. And unfortunately, Vince has taken the bait and now giving him a little bit more exposure. I think WWE trying to reach out to him is kind of stupid, because he's just going to keep in his little hidey hole and keep talking his trash because he knows that he gets a reaction out of it now. So he wants to be, and Vince giving him this, I watched on the WWE website where he gave him like give him exposure where they tried to talk to him, and that's just giving Glenn Beck free press. So I personally have nothing nice to say about the guy.
You're not the only one. I didn't take too kind of his comments neither. I mean, you know, he's just, like you said, he definitely not afraid to speak his mind. He's definitely a prick to me.
Yeah,
and
big time.
He's
in our business, in our line of work, we talk a lot about egos, and this guy has the biggest ego of any wrestler. Bigger ego than any wrestler I've ever met. I remember him telling the story about him meeting a fan of his, and I know it was either a BS story or he was really embellishing it, to where he made it sound like this fan of his was meeting God for the first time, and he got really quiet, and he was talking about how this fan would just kneel at his feet or whatever. You know what I mean?
unbelievable.
That you have no idea.
Yeah. So, why don't you go ahead and tell the people how they can get in touch with you through social media, Facebook, Twitter, or anyone out there that needs to know, any other links that people need to know.
Well, really, all I have is Facebook, because I'm kind of old and set in my ways. So you can find me on Facebook at Wonderful Zack, one word, .winners.com. That's my Facebook page, and really that's, that's it. I haven't caught on to the whole Twitter thing yet.
All right, so definitely check him out. Wonderful Zack, with one word put together, and that's Winters. On Facebook, check him out. Check out his upcoming shows, upcoming
All over
matches.
YouTube too.
And yeah, he's on YouTube as well. Him and his tag team partners. So make sure y'all
Wonderfully Vicious.
Wonderfully Vicious. Check that out. If you're in the West Coast area, well, if you want to check out the shows in person, make sure you support local pro wrestling out there. Whatever you're from, whatever you're at, they're the backbone of wrestling. I can go on and on about it, but everybody knows the drill. Support your local pro wrestling.
Definitely.
At this point in your career, what are some other goals you would like to accomplish?
Other goals? Really, my main goal right now is being able to get into and compete in Japan. This might be weird coming from an indie guy. I don't really have any aspirations to go to WWE or TNA. Working in Chikara might fit me, because I do kind of have a comedic style. Really, it's just getting my name out there and getting out there and find more work is my ultimate goal.
All right, so I guess my last question for you is, or better yet, my next to last question is, what would your advice be to anyone out there that wants to pursue their career as a wrestler? What would your advice be?
How many times have you asked this question?
A lot.
Oh yeah. My advice is probably nothing different from uh, anything you or your listeners have heard before. You got to find a good wrestling school. A lot of them pay tuition. Believe me, it's worth it. I had to pawn a bunch of stuff to afford my first tuition, and then make sure when you go to a wrestling school, make sure they're actually quality wrestlers and kind of names out there. My trainer has wrestled for the NWA championship a few times, so I knew I was getting quality training. Um, just go out there. If you survive wrestling training, get out there, try to get your name out there. Don't. This will probably catch me a lot of heat if anybody listens. But don't stay loyal to one company, because that I've seen that down in Oregon, and it just kills a lot of wrestlers. Is that, well, I don't really want to because I'm wrestling in front of 20 people and I got to stay loyal to this company. You got to stay loyal to whoever's paying you.
I understand where you're coming from there. I mean, if you're in the indie circuit, you got to expand yourself. You just can't. It's just like any other business out there. Especially if you're on the indie circuit, you got to expand yourself. Get yourself out there more than just one company,
That's why.
one city, one place. My last question.
That's why. That's why I'm not here tonight. Getting the wonderful Zack Winter's name out there.
So, my last question is, what do you like the most of being a wrestler? You like the traveling, you like the interaction with the fans, being on the road, talking with your peers in the locker room. What do you like the most of being a wrestler?
Well, so you just named off all my favorite things. I love traveling. I love going on road trips with the boys. Uh, I love the camaraderie backstage. Pulling ribs is one of my favorites. All
Well, Zach, I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. I want to thank you for being on
right.
the show. Great talking
Thank
to
you.
you. Best of success goes out to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anytime, really.
You have a good night, man.
You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye.
That was Zach Winters joining me here on Triple Threat Wrestling Radio.